Hello, and welcome back to the podcast where you are invited for lighthearted conversations about things that matter as you seek to live your most meaningful, beautiful, and joyful life. I'm your host, Dr. Edie Wadsworth, and I hope you enjoy your stay here at the House of Joy.
Well, hi, friends. I'm so happy to see you again. I'm finally back from vacation. I'm finally back to my solo episodes, and I am just so honored to be here. This is episode 214, and we're talking all about creating abundance, creating an abundant life, and what that means, and how very close you are to creating it, really, no matter what is going on in your life. So, I have been off for the last month, and it has been so glorious, but I have missed you. I've missed connecting with you on the podcast, although we have had some pre-recorded episodes that we got out for you. I have missed connecting with you on Instagram. So I'll be back in all forms this week, and can't wait to see you, chat with you, all those things. So if you don't follow me on Instagram, go follow me over there. I have been doing, I've been starting to do just more showing my face over there and interacting and showing you what I'm doing and all of that. So if you haven't followed me over there, go follow, send me some DMs. It's at Edie Wadsworth over on Instagram. So in August, inside Life Mentoring School, we talk about abundance. So I briefly wanted to talk about it here because I feel like the way most people talk about it is really, really kind of woo-woo. And the way I think about it is way more, I think, straightforward. So I want to talk about that, but I want to start with a story that I actually shared in my coaching group last week, but I want to share a little snippet of it with you because I was headed back. We'd been in Minnesota for 3.5 weeks and enjoyed a lot of rest time there. My brother-in-law passed away, which is why we left early to go. And so it has been really sad, but just so healing to grieve with family while we were there. And we miss him so much. And we're just glad we got to be with family during such a hard time. We then spent the rest of the time, our family was there. We played pickleball. I started a new book called Jackie. I'm about halfway through. I really like it. It's on Jackie O. Did a lot of walking, but really not a lot else, and totally disconnected from work, like totally rested. You guys, I don't know how many of you have an Aura ring, but I was following my Aura ring stats during that time. And I was so incredibly rested. My heart rate was so low. My recovery scores were so high. I'm like, man, my body really needed this and really is liking this. And then on our way home, my Aura ring did not like what happened on the way home. We basically got to the airport, flight delay, flight cancel. But we had already checked in and left. And so they already had our luggage. So then we had to spend the night in Minneapolis and we couldn't get our luggage. So Delta gave us toothbrushes, which was very kind, I suppose. So we spent the night there without our luggage. The next morning, they had rescheduled our flight for the next morning. The next morning we get there. Guess what? Flight canceled. And I was up, and Tom started school on Tuesday, and this was on Sunday. And he said, the soonest we can get you out of here is Tuesday. And I'm like, well, we can't wait till Tuesday because my guy is starting 6th grade. So I got on my computer. Stevie was still up there kind of talking with the Delta people. I got on my computer. I'm like, I'm finding a flight home from somewhere. I'm not sure where, but we are getting home. So I found a flight from Sun Country to Nashville, which meant we were then, after we got to Nashville at 8 p.m., we were going to have to drive 3.5 hours home. I knew it was going to be crazy. But anyways, it's the only thing we could find. So we booked flights, paid another $2,000, just praying that Delta was going to refund our money, which they finally did, by the way. Thank you, Delta. So it was a crazy 2 days at the airport. So when we finally figured out that we were going to be able to probably get home, although we were going to have to fly to Nashville, we were already at the airport and we had 5 or 6 hours before our flight, a long time. And you know how it is when you get all worked up like that and your heart rate gets up and you're frustrated. And listen, you guys, everybody at the airport was so frustrated. everybody was angry and snippy. I mean, most people were. And lots of flights canceled. I don't know what is going on. I guess it's still leftovers from a couple of weeks ago with the shutdown. I'm not sure. Anyways, it was chaos at the airport. And I kind of knew I just wanted to reset my mind because I had gotten in that mode of like hustle and, oh my gosh, how are we getting home and being frustrated and all of that. And I didn't want to spend the whole day like that. And I have been a student of personal development and of emotional and mental resilience for long enough that I was like, I know how to do this. I know how to kind of take a step back, take some deep breaths, figure out what kind of day I want to have, and start creating that day for myself. And I told this story in my coaching program because I found this little spot in the airport after I kind of took a moment, got myself right in the right headspace. I'm like, okay, first of all, it's incredible that we can fly through the air at all. Such a miracle that most of the flights we've been on have been great. And so I don't want to let this ruin my day. I can't control whether Delta cancels my flight, but I can control if I let that ruin my day. And so I just gave myself a reset, and I was trying to find a place in the airport where I had my journal with me, where I could journal, where I could plan my week, where I could think about, what I really want to think about, create internally for myself the kind of day I wanted to create, because I know what it's like when you're somewhere for 5 or 6 hours. I just knew like this could be a miserable day. I'm watching lots of other people have a miserable day. And listen, I'm not above it. I've had miserable days before too, because of things that happened outside of my control. But I knew that this was within my control. And I just decided this could be a great day. I could do tons of journaling. I could listen to podcasts. I could get my walking in, my steps in while I'm here at the airport. And I'm telling you, I set up what I called for myself an inspiration station. So I found one of those areas at the airport where it's kind of like it almost feels like you're sitting a little bit in a phone booth. And I had all of my stuff out. I had my headphones in. I had one of the most amazing journaling sessions. This has happened to me so many times, either at the airport or on an airplane, because again, there's not much else you can do. And I don't love to watch movies. I kind of like to let my mind dream and set a vision for myself and for my life. And I just got myself into such a good space. I created this internal experience for myself that just felt so good. I loved thinking about my life, planning what I wanted to create in the next 90 days. I planned out this whole new thing that I want to create. I was just in my zone. I was kind of in the flow. And it reminded me of what it feels like to kind of create a mind of abundance, which also feels like going with the current of your life instead of against it. So we could all fight against things that are happening. I wish my flight hadn't gotten canceled. I wish I could get home sooner. I wish whatever we wish in the moment. For me, it was related to getting home. And we can do that, but that's like kind of going against the current of what is happening right now. I'm not getting home right now. So given my current circumstances, what do I want to create? And I just decided for myself, I just want to create kind of a day to remember. I want to create an experience for myself that I will look back on that and go, remember that day in the airport when everybody was so frustrated, but you decided to create for yourself this 5 or 6 hour experience of journaling and podcasting and walking. It was actually a glorious day, you guys. And I know that I will remember that day. And how often have I not chosen that? And one of the questions that I ask myself is, where in my life am I still resisting what's actually happening, instead of figuring out, okay, now that I accept what is happening, what kind of experience do I want to create for myself given my circumstances? Because obviously those we can't always control. Again, even with something like grieving, you can have an experience of grieving that feels like it enriches you. You allow yourself to have the emotion. You allow yourself to process. You allow yourself to miss the person, you just allow yourself to experience it fully. And I think a lot of times what we do, even whether it's grief or whether it's the frustration of, what you might consider a day wasted at the airport, is, what kind of full experience can I create for myself given my current circumstances? And I can tell you that if my flight had been on time, I would not have experienced the day that I experienced And all of the brainstorming and all of the great ideas that I journaled that day, I don't know if I would have had them. And it made me so grateful that I spent the day in the airport. And it was funny because I ended up flying home next to these people that actually were from Minnesota and from like literally 15 minutes from where we were. So it was just an interesting flight. And again, I'm not always like this, but when I open myself up to the experiences that I'm having, I really, really enjoyed it. And it's kind of, I feel like those opposites are available to us all the time. Whatever it feels like, oh, well, this happened, so I should be frustrated. I am frustrated and I want to stay frustrated, but because why? And I think that for so many of us, the experience that we create in our lives for ourselves can either have this feeling of fullness and even joy, even I do believe there's even like joyful grieving. There's joyful frustration where, yeah, I can acknowledge that this feels frustrating, but also can I just acknowledge that life is quirky sometimes, and sometimes you get stranded at an airport for 5 or 6 hours wearing the same clothes that you've worn for 2 days. I did having brushed my teeth though. And so now what? So I love asking myself that. Okay, now what? Now we're here. So now what do we want to create for ourselves in this experience that we have, that we're left with? And I just more and more want to keep choosing experiences that feel full and enriching. I teach this concept in my coaching program where I do believe this, that abundance is a stance of faith. It's trusting that no matter what happens to us, God is for us. He loves us. This is somehow all working out for our good. And if we could adopt that mindset, I want you to think about how that would change your life in so many ways. I want you to think about how that would change your day today. I want you to think about how that could possibly change your marriage, your relationship with your child. What if you believed in your relationship with your child that somehow this is all working out for your good and for their good? What if you really believed that you just had faith? Faith is having no evidence, but just the belief that somehow God loves this person more than me. This is going to work out. And I think that stance of faith, it's not that, it's different. This is how I think it's very different than what people might call manifesting, where you're sort of thinking thoughts, but you're not really putting action to it. Abundance takes action. This attitude of abundance, this attitude of this is all somehow rigged in my favor. So now what? Now what do I want to do with this opportunity I've been given? Not let me just wait for great things to fall into the sky. No, it took work for me to create the day that I created. It took me paying attention. It took me being willing to have a different day than most people, being willing to, accept my circumstances and not resist them, and kind of sort of force myself to go, now what? Because the thing that we like to do is we like to hang on to the frustration. We like to hang on to however that bad feeling that we're feeling. We're mad at somebody. We feel angry at them. We're bitter at them. We like hanging on to that because we think, well, I have to hang on to it because this person did me wrong, or because they canceled my flight, or because, or whatever. And my question is, but who are we hurting by hanging on to it? And I think what we're hurting is ourselves. And I watched this episode play out where this person, oh my gosh, Stevie and I talked about it afterwards. And it was in the frustration of all the airport stuff. And these people in line were being so mean to each other. Why? Why do we want to do this? I feel like we're in this season of, the political world where why do we want to make everybody our enemy? Why do we want to approach things always just like being angry and being revved up? It's not that we don't want to take action, that we don't want to exercise our right to vote. And, it's not that we don't want to do all those things. Of course we do. But let's do it from a heart and mindset that really believes that God is for us, that he loves us, that somehow this is all going to work out in my favor. I just can't see it now, but I trust that I am loved and cherished, and that somehow all will be well. And I do believe that attitude of abundance can take you so far. It gives you an experience of life right now that feels like a miracle. It gives you an experience of today that feels like I don't need anything else on the outside to change, and I can create what I want on the inside. And that to me feels like the best mental and emotional resilience, the best stance of faith that we can have, that we believe sometimes most of the time, without evidence to believe that all will be well. And I want you to think about where in your life you could use a heavy dose of this. There's probably one area of your life. Maybe it is related to money. We often think of money when we think about abundance. Maybe it's related to your job. But what if you just believe that you're loved and cared for and that somehow you always get everything you need? I really do believe that. And I think there's no harm in believing that. And there's so much good to be had in believing that, to create for yourself today what you want to create for yourself in this very moment. So, how are you creating abundance in your life? And if not, what area of your life do you want to create more abundance in? That is my challenge for you. And I hope you have a great rest of your week. I'm so happy to be back and so happy you're here.